Hello and welcome to a CourseCast edition of the Share.care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you a foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own selfish best interest to help others. Now, today, for this CourseCast, we're going to be speaking to Jim Marshall. Now, Jim Marshall was previously on podcast talking about his book, Septemics, and he's going to take us through in detail each of the different scales within the Septemics book and explain that in more detail. So this will be a several-part course, and this is part one, where Jim will explain Septemics.
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
It's my great pleasure to welcome back Jim Marshall to the show. Now, Jim's a polymathic scholar, and he's the inventor and author of Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Now, Jim has taken time to come back and share with us in detail. He's going to talk through how Septemics works. Jim, pleasure to have you back.
Thanks, Damian. Glad to be here.
So if we start the slideshow, so I'm sharing the screen now, so everyone should be able to see that, and I'm going to start the slideshow. Away we go. So do you want to talk us through, and I'll advance the slides as you direct me. Over to you.
Okay. So let me just say, by way of a brief introduction for those who may need it, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I constructed a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Now today we're going to show some of the specific content of the book so you can see it for yourself, and I will discuss it. Let me talk first about what you're looking at here. The title of the book, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena, and the subtitle is Analysis, Prediction, and Management of Human Affairs, which tells you what this is about. It enables you to analyze, predict, and manage human affairs. And next to it is the Septemics logo. Now notice that it is a 7-pointed star. Each ray is a different color, and between them they make a rainbow or a spectrum. So this is what Septemics is about. There are 35 Septemic scales, each of which has 7 levels. So that star tells you the content of Septemics and why it's called Septemics, which means literally of or pertaining to 7. So let's go to the first scale. Okay, so these are going to be individual scales, meaning they apply more to individuals than to groups. This is the scale of basic purposes. This scale is the most important of them all. It's extremely important. If you find your level on this scale, just find your level, it will definitely improve your life. Every human being has one of 7 basic purposes, and they're in the hierarchy. Now, this is also valuable in understanding other people. So you might want to know another person's basic purpose. I can't think of anything more important to know about oneself or about another than the person's basic purpose. Now, of course, everybody has many purposes, but underneath it, there's one. And I have done the heavy lifting in narrowing it down to just these 7. So in finding your level, you're only choosing from among 7 choices. So I urge anyone, you can see this scale on my website for free. Find your level on the scale. What is your basic purpose? Because once you do that, you can throw out the other 6 levels and you have a clear understanding of what you're about. Now, notice the axis where the vertical line is. This is an axis that runs from courage, wisdom, and ethics at the top to fear, stupidity, and criminality at the bottom. Also notice that in the middle at level 4 is a dividing line between social and antisocial, meaning persons who are below level 4 are antisocial. Persons who are above level 4 are social. Persons at level 4 could go either way or maybe indeterminate. Now also notice there are subgroups to this. The 2 top levels I call superhumans. They're humans, but they have abilities that most people do not have. The 3 groups in the middle are humans. That's the largest group from this scale. And the ones at the bottom are subhumans. Those are evil, destructive people. So I could go into a discussion of what each of the 7 levels are, but it's right in front of you. So, Damien, if you don't have any questions, I'm ready to move on.
Is it a case of, from that perspective, someone is what they are, or can a person move to different levels?
Okay, this particular scale is the level you're at is a persistent trait, similar to your natal horoscope. Most people, I don't know what the percentage is, but well over 90% spend their entire lives at one level. That's why this is powerful. Now, the reason for that is, if you notice next to the names of the levels, you have plus and minus signs.
Yes.
What that means is there is a reversal of polarity when you go from one level to the next. That's a big deal.
Right.
Now, this is something that's understood by many people in Asian philosophy, Oriental philosophy, that when a person undergoes a major change, there is a reversal of polarity. Usually it's a very big deal. Usually it takes a lot of time. So if a person has some big transformational experience, that might move them up one level. If a person has some horrible traumatic experience, that might move him down one level. That's about it. This is a scale in which it's absolutely vital that you know what level you're at, and you can try to move yourself up to the next highest level, but it probably won't happen in your lifetime unless you have some intense transformational work facilitation, something like that, therapy, usually over a period of many years.
Right. Okay. And do you want to talk through the columns as well? Do you want to explain the objective column? What does that what's the significance of that? How does it connect with the?
When I talk about when I talk about the scale of basic purposes, your objective is your basic purpose. For example, if you look at level 1, the objective of a saint is to transcend. That's why I call them saints. Yeah. They're not interested in the physical realm particularly. And now, how they articulate it will depend on what religion or philosophy they are connected with. For example, if you talk to Christians, they'll say, well, they want to die and go to heaven. That's transcendence. If you talk to a Buddhist, he might say, well, he wants to attain nirvana. But it's still a transcendence. Yeah. So if you go to the bottom, the lowest of them all is destruction. Now, this is something that most people don't understand. Most people have a hard time understanding that there are people who are inherently destructive. It's not too many of us. This was the level of Hitler and Pol Pot. Yeah. Above that is what I call the criminal. The criminal is seeking pleasure. He does not particularly want to kill you, but he will if you get in his way. Yeah. If he has a chance to get $1 million that he can use for buying cocaine and champagne, he will wipe you out. But he does not necessarily intend to do that like the subversive, level 7.
Right.
Then you come up into the human level, you have the loser. The loser is a person whose objective is suffering. This person wants to suffer. Now, again, this makes no sense to most people. Most people would say, why would somebody have that for an objective? Well, I'm telling you, these people exist, and you probably know some of them. Some of these people will kill themselves with drugs. Some of them will kill themselves with alcohol. Some of them will kill themselves by eating themselves to death. Some of them will destroy themselves by bad relationships, okay? Or doing something stupid, like committing a crime and leaving evidence behind, okay? These people, you cannot help these people because their basic purpose is to suffer. And if you try to help them, you're going against the person's basic purpose. Above that is the normal. This is the largest demographic group. These people seek conformity. Now, you might say, well, conformity is not a good thing. Well, think of it in terms of trying to fit in. These people want to fit in. If everybody grows a mustache, that guy will grow a mustache. And if everybody shaves off their mustaches, he will shave off his mustache because he wants to fit in. Okay, these are normal people to have. They have a house and a mortgage and a car payment and kids in school. They're normal. They don't want to set the world on fire, but they also don't want to suffer. Now, above that is the winner. The objective of the winner is wealth. Now, wealth doesn't just mean money. It depends on the person. There are different types of wealth. Like if a guy's an actor winning an Academy Award for Best Actor, to him, that's wealth. Having that statue on his mantle is wealth for him. Above that is the leader. The leader is down for the struggle. The leader's objective is conquest. Now, don't think conquest is necessarily a bad thing. It's a question of whose ox is being gored. For example, when the Allies conquered the Axis powers in 1945, that was, for almost everyone, a good conquest. Even the people in Japan and Italy and Germany benefited from that conquest. Or another example is when Lincoln wanted to conquer the Confederacy. Okay, he ended slavery, and he preserved the Union by conquering the Confederacy. So you have to realize that these people are not feathering their nests. They have some big thing they want to do, and the best word I can think of is conquest. Okay, so those are the 7 levels.
Right, and I assume too when you're talking about you're using the male pronoun, but you're applying it to both male and female as well. That's correct.
For sure.
Yeah, cool. I just want to clarify that.
Oh yeah, this applies to every human being.
Yeah, beautiful. And at the very top, do you want to
every human being is somewhere on the scale?
Yeah. Okay. And at the top, I was going to say at the top you have type, and you've got linear, quantum, and general. Do you want to describe what the type is? Because that's consistent through the slides, and as we work through them, just so that people understand what that means.
Yes. There are subcategories. Every scale is either general or specific. This one is general. Linear or spiral. This one is linear. And quantum or I forgot the alternative word.
Yeah, we'll get through them, but I just wanted to explain if you could explain what that means at the top. If you go to my website and read the introduction, it explains what those subcategories are. Okay, beautiful. Yeah. So for anyone that's curious about that part of the slideshow,
and once you understand what they are, once you understand what those subtypes are, it really, really helps you to understand these skills. Without knowing the subtypes, it's difficult to understand these.
Okay, understood. All right. And with you've got the percentage humanity. Is that how you've broken out? For each type, that's roughly what the percentage exists on the planet. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's right. That's right, on the planet.
Okay. Where did that data come from?
That's a very complicated question to answer. I did some serious research using very specific technical skills that I have in order to determine that. And I don't really want to go into that because that in itself could be a 2-hour explanation.
No, fair enough. I understand.
But I want to finish what I was saying about quantum or gradual. A scale is either quantum or gradual. So this is a quantum scale, meaning there's no intermediate state between saint and leader.
Right.
You can't be halfway. You're either a leader or you're a saint. It's a quantum leap.
Right. Okay. Understood.
And that makes sense when you realize that it's a reversal of polarity.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain the polarities then when you're saying that? So from a saint is a negative polarity, a leader is a positive polarity. Can you explain what that means?
Right. So, well, negative and positive, as I explain in the book, those signs don't really mean negative and positive. They mean inflow, outflow, or you might say it another way, reach, withdraw. If the leader is reaching, okay, he's reaching out.
Yep. Understood.
Okay, he's not withdrawing. Okay, so the saint is withdrawing. He's not reaching into life. He's withdrawing from life. Yeah. So that's an inflow, whereas the leader is on an outflow.
Understood.
So inflow, outflow, reach, withdraw. Two ways of saying the same thing, as I explain in the introduction.
Yeah, lovely. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that? I don't have more questions, but
no.
Shall I move on to the next
I'm ready
slide?
to go on.
Yeah. So that's a scale of basic purpose. So that's the first scale. For the individual scales, because you mentioned there's is it 24 individual scales and 11 group scales. Okay, so this is the first of the individual scales. Yeah. Okay, so the second scale is the scale of personal influence. Do you want to tell us about that?
Okay, so let me explain what I mean by personal influence. There are many ways to affect someone. Personal influence is one of them. Like, for example, if I walk up to you and hit you in the head with a club, that's not personal influence. Okay, that's I'm affecting you. Yeah, but it's not personal influence. This is the way that a person influences you in a kind of an interpersonal way. Yeah, and if you look at the axis, you'll see above level 1 is cause and below level 7 is effect, meaning this is an axis of cause and effect. So a person who is at cause, largely at cause, is at or near the top of the scale. A person who's at effect is at or near the bottom of the scale. Also notice that it has the polarity thing again. Yeah. Now notice this one goes plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. The other one went minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. Right. Okay? That is just the way these scales occur in nature. So when you are controlling somebody by telepathy, which is another way of saying by will, you're outflowing or reaching. But when you control somebody by charisma, that's an inflow. It's like a magnetic pull. Okay? So that tells you that these alternate between inflow and outflow. And again, this is a quantum scale, meaning there's no intermediate state. There's nothing in between aloofness and reason. Okay? Either you're influencing somebody by aloofness or you're not. Okay? And that applies for all 7. Now, what you find is that many people will use more than one. In other words, at a given point in time, somebody's using one of these levels, and at another point in time, you might be using a different level. But also you find that most people will kind of be stuck on a particular level. So, for example, martyrdom, which is a form of humility, okay, that's affecting people. You're reaching out to them. You're saying, I have been tortured. That's an outflow. It's not an inflow. And you influence people by that. Yeah. Yeah. Now, above that is victimization. So victimization is not as bad as martyrdom. Victimization is about guilt. You're running a guilt trip on people.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Yeah.
Okay, so you're influencing people by using guilt. Right. You say, oh, I'm a victim. You've treated me terribly. Okay. So you run a guilt trip on the person, and that's how you influence them. Again, that's a very low level of personal influence. above that is domination. Domination, you overwhelm the person, like somebody who yells and threatens, okay?
Yeah.
You know, the dad says to the kid, if you don't wash your hands, I'm going to whip you, okay?
Yeah.
He's dominating him,
Yeah.
okay? That's a form of personal influence. Above that is aloofness, which is a type of restraint. It's an inflow. Above that is reason. Most
Do you want
people
to just,
understand
before
this.
you jump
This is
onto
what you
reason,
get.
can you
Yes,
explain aloofness and give an example of aloofness?
sure,
Yeah.
sure. This is something that's used more often by women than by men. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of women, they're kind of aloof. You know, they're. I think this was more true in the past than it is now,
Mhm.
because there's a lot more women today who act like men than was the case in the past.
Mhm.
But you know, an aloofness means you're kind of withholding yourself. You're restraining yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the Victorian women were very aloof.
Mhm.
You
Okay.
know, they didn't go around batting their eyelashes at people and trying to pick up men. Okay,
Mhm.
that wasn't done. They were aloof. So
Right.
some
Okay.
people use that as a way to
Playing hard
control
to
people.
get,
It's like it's an
is,
influence.
is
Yes, that's one way to explain it. Yes,
yeah, okay.
yes.
Understood. Yeah.
You know, I mean, hard to get is sort of like a special category of this.
Yes.
Uh, but you know, there are some people who are just they have an aloofness about them,
Yeah.
and that's how they influence people.
Mhm.
So again, that's not a very high level; it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you cross over to 3, which is reason.
Mhm.
A person will use logic on you, will speak to you and explain things to you, right? This is what lawyers do.
Mhm.
This is what salesmen do.
Yeah.
They use reason to influence you,
Mhm.
right? The lawyer is trying to influence the judge. He's using logic. He's explaining the
Mhm.
reason of his argument, and
Mhm.
he's trying to influence the judge that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the other lawyer is also doing that, and one of them might be better at this than the other, and that's the guy who wins.
Yes. Okay.
And again, that's an outflow. You're outflowing to the person.
Yeah.
You're saying, now listen here. Okay. Now, 2 is charisma.
Mhm.
Charisma is a form of leadership, and this is an inflow. You know, when a person is charismatic, he doesn't have to do anything. He's like a magnet. You know, they just draw people in. It's an inflow.
Natural charm.
And above that is yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, charm is a more general term because there are physical charms,
Yeah.
but there are people who are charismatic.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you could say Marilyn Monroe is charismatic, among other things.
Yes.
You could say
Steve Jobs would fall into that
JFK.
category. Yeah.
Everybody says JFK was charismatic,
Yeah.
and I think they're right.
Yeah.
It's a type of leadership where he sort of radiated this leadership that made people want to follow him.
Yeah. Understood.
And above that, the highest level is telepathy. Now, everybody has telepathic ability. It's just that some people are better at it than others, and some people realize they have it, and some don't. There's a lot of people don't realize they're telepathic.
Is that when
And
you're talking
telepathy
about?
is will.
Yeah, do you want to explain the telepathy part as to what that is? Is that like,
Yeah,
something, if you take the extreme end of that, you're thinking of the, Carrie type of, from the Carrie movie, but, is that where your just thoughts control people, or is it more about unconscious rapport? What are you referring to as telepathy?
well, as I say there, it's will. Will. You
Mhm.
have will. You will something and people do it. Some people have the ability
Mm.
to, like a guy meets a girl, right? And he has a lot of telepathy and he wills her to go out with him.
Mm.
Uh, Very often you have people who do things and they have no idea why they did it.
Yeah.
And very often it's because somebody willed them to do it.
Mm.
So obviously this is a great power. Now, to give you an example, if you remember in Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie was came out, I think, 77.
Mm.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is in the speeder
I think you meant
And
Star Wars, not Star Trek.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
You're
Thank
probably
you.
offended half the
I'm not a big fan of either one of these things.
Yeah, so we're talking Star Wars with
Yeah,
Obi-Wan
so
Kenobi.
it's easy for me to mix them up. Yes, Star Wars, yes.
Yeah.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi says, sotto voce, these are not the droids we're looking for.
Yeah.
And the guard then says in a loud voice to his compatriots, these are not the droids we're looking for. And he lets them go through.
Yes.
So Obi-Wan used his telepathy.
Yeah.
He implanted this idea into the head of the soldier. So it's pretty clear from the Star Wars saga that Obi-Wan has special abilities. He has the ability to do things by will. Okay, so that's a good example.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
People who get things done by will.
Yeah. So you are actually talking, when you're talking telepathy, you are talking about that way of thought transference to another person, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Yeah.
Now, needless to say, not that many people have it, but there are some people who have this quite well, and they can get things done.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. And at the top there, again, the types are linear, quantum, and general. So again, they don't, you're either one or the other. Is that what you're saying with that?
This scale is a linear scale as opposed to a spiral scale, meaning it goes in a straight line.
Yeah.
Quantum meaning there's no intermediate stages.
Yeah.
And general meaning it can be used in many applications.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying here, this is the scale of personal influence. This is different ways that people influence, and where you are on that scale is how you influence other people.
Yes, and where other people are too. So you can analyze a person, with this and say, oh, I see, this guy's at domination. He's overwhelming everybody around him. See, that's not a very high cause.
Yeah.
It's better than victimization. Now realize that victimization is an inflow, domination is an outflow. So there's a quantum leap between those two levels.
All right, I understand that. Yeah. Is there anything else to cover on this particular slide?
No, that's good for now.
Awesome. So that's the scale of personal influence, which is the second individual scale. So we move on to the next one, which is the scale of choice. So what are we talking about when we're talking about scale of choice?
Okay. The biggest theme, the greatest theme in human history is freedom. That's why wars are fought. Okay? That's why people want to get out of jail. Okay? People want to have freedom. Now, what is freedom? Freedom is the ability to choose. If you can choose, you're free. If you can't choose, you're not free.
Yeah.
Now, notice this is a spiral scale. So what that means is there is a apparent congruence between level 1 and level 7.
Right. Do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Say no choice. Pardon?
Do you want to explain that connection, the spiral connection between 1 and 7? Yeah.
Yes. So it's easy for someone who doesn't know this material to confuse level 1 and level 7. See, at level 7, it's no choice possible. This is a very downscale person. Okay? This person is oblivious, can't make a choice. Whereas at the top, no choice is necessary. That's a transcendent person. Okay, that's a big difference.
Okay. That's good.
So, okay, so this should be pretty easy to tell the difference between these two. A transcendent person doesn't have to make a choice. Like a lot of the ancient Christians, the Romans put them to death, and that was okay with them because they were transcendent. They were going to go to heaven. So now notice next to this is one viewpoint, many viewpoints, one viewpoint, many viewpoints. And this is the positive, negative, positive, negative. So at no choice, you have one viewpoint. And that viewpoint is basically, I don't care. At level 2, you have any choice. Well, if you can have any choice, those are many viewpoints, you see?
Yeah.
You have many viewpoints.
Mm.
But when you go down to 3, one's own choice, that's one viewpoint, your own.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go down to any choice but one's own, that's many viewpoints. That's the person who says, well, I'm not going to make a choice, but I'll take somebody else's choice. So
Right.
this is the type of person who, if he's hanging around with people who are Democrats, he's a Democrat.
Yep.
Okay? And if he's hanging around with people who are Republicans, he's a Republican. Because he's irresponsible.
Yeah.
Okay? So there are many viewpoints there because the person doesn't really have one of his own. Now,
Right.
below that, another choice. That's robotism. So this is somebody who's like a robot. The wife says to the husband, go change your shirt. And he goes and changes it.
Yeah.
Then later on, she says, go put on a tie. He puts on a tie. He is a robot
Yeah.
to the wife. Okay. So he's operating on her choice, not his.
Mm.
If the wife says, tonight we're going out to a movie, he says, yes, dear.
Mm.
Okay. So that's one viewpoint, the wife's viewpoint in this analogy. And below that is group's choice. Now, this is collectivism. These are the people who are communists and socialists and fascists. Okay? There are many viewpoints because it's collective.
Yeah.
Like in a collective society, you don't have individual choice. So the millions of people all have different viewpoints. And below that is no choice possible. That's one viewpoint. And the viewpoint is no choice is possible. That person is oblivious.
Yeah.
Now, on the side is the axis.
Yeah.
Where at the top you have complete responsibility and freedom. A person for whom no choice is necessary is completely free and totally responsible. See, he doesn't care, you want to go for Chinese food? Fine. You want to go for Italian food? Fine. You want to go for Thai food? That's fine too. So he's completely free.
Ukraine is the one that keeps military planners in the Kremlin up at night the most, but Finland is almost right.
Sorry.
Okay. So he assumes complete responsibility. See, in a sense, he's responsible for everybody.
Yeah.
If the people want to go for Chinese food, that's fine. I can assume responsibility for that. See? That's a very high level. At the bottom, you have no freedom or responsibility. A person who is oblivious has no freedom because he's oblivious. He can't even make a choice. This would be like a catatonic person.
Okay.
Like this is the type of person who is clinically depressed. He stays in his house. He can't make a choice between what he's going to have for lunch. That's too much for him.
Yeah.
And he is not assuming responsibility for anything.
Right.
Right. So now notice again that for humans, absolutes are unattainable. So complete freedom and responsibility is slightly above level 1.
Yeah.
And no freedom or responsibility is slightly below level 7.
Right. Okay.
So this is really, really important in assessing people, groups, and yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to understand somebody, pay attention. If the guy says, everybody around is, like, for example, I know a couple who are liberals, and everybody they know are conservatives. Okay? I don't know how that happened or why, but it's a fact. And so
I think people can relate to each other.
They're saying they are at level 3, meaning I'm making my own choice, which you can say is a type of selfishness. It's not selfishness in the sense of greediness. It's just your own choice.
Yeah.
So, this is the type of person who's not going to be pushed around by people.
Yeah.
Okay. He's going to make his own choice.
Yeah.
And that is his viewpoint. He knows his viewpoint. He has one viewpoint, and it's his. This is a pretty upscale person.
Yeah. Okay. So can you transcend between the different levels if you find yourself in one particular level, if you want to go to a different level?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can move up levels. The general point of this book is you find your level and then you move yourself up one level. You definitely can do that. And this is important because, you see, if you have a guy has his own choice, he wants to do it his way. Some people might think of this person as stubborn. He says, no, I don't want to listen to jazz. I don't want to listen to new wave. I want to listen to classical, okay? That's what's on my radio, and that's what I'm sticking with. Now, if he gets some therapy or some facilitation or some big happy thing that happens in his life, he might move up to a point where he can have any choice, which is a type of aloofness. He can say, yeah, put on whatever music you want. I don't care. See, and then at that point, there's many viewpoints because other people are going to make other choices, and there might even be a discussion, amongst the group. So you can move on the scale, and you want to. See, selecting any choice is a better state than having one's own choice because you're free. See, there's a type, you're not selfish, you're aloof. So you're not getting into the conflict.
Yes.
See, a guy at level 3 might argue with you. He might say, look, I realize that my haircut went out of style 30 years ago, and I don't give a damn. This is going to be the haircut I want.
Yes.
Okay? So if the guy's girlfriend is telling him, your haircut is out of style, why don't you update it? He's going to say, no, this is my haircut, and this is what I like. If he goes up to any choice and she says, why don't you update your haircut? He might say, okay, yeah, let me look around and see what's there. You see? Yeah. He's kind of aloof from it. He's not stuck in it like the guy at level 3.
I get it. Okay. And to become aware of that, is it a case of just being aware of where you are on that choice? How do you identify where you are on the scale? Is it just self-reflection, or is there a test that you need to take? Is it simply just noticing, reading the chapter of the book and going, well, this is where I'm at? How does someone identify that?
Okay, so basically, the way all 35 scales work is by observation. You observe. It's just like you go into a garden, you say, oh, this is a chrysanthemum, this is a rose, this is a tulip. Okay, this is a lily of the valley. Okay, all different types of flowers. Okay, you can see them, you can identify them. You have to look at them. Now, if you say to me, well, what flowers are in Joe's garden? I say, I don't know. I've never been to Joe's garden. Okay. But if I go there, then I can look around and I can say, oh, okay, I see what he's got. He's got this and this and this. So now let me say something that undercuts this, which is very important.
Yeah.
The key to using this is insight. People who are high on the scale, any scale, are there because they are insightful.
Yeah.
People who are low on the scale are there because they're not insightful. They lack insight. So a person who is oblivious, he has no insight at all. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
See, he doesn't have a clue. So he has no insight. That's why he's at level 7.
Okay.
So the more insight you have, the higher you are on any scale. So in a sense, using this book requires insight.
Right.
So, for example, a person who is at or near the bottom of any scale is going to have a lot of trouble using that scale because he lacks insight in that corresponding area. That's why he's at the bottom of the scale.
Yeah.
So that's why you can help somebody. You see a guy who's low on a certain scale, and you can sort of get with him and help him, ask him the right question, get him to study it, get him to look up the words, and try to get him to some kind of an epiphany about what's going on. See, you can have, I talked about a guy whose wife bosses him around, there's the cliche, the general's general. You know who the general's general is? His wife.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a guy, he's in charge of 100,000 men. They do whatever he says. But when his wife says, go wash your hands, he does it.
Yeah.
Okay? So he's like a robot to his wife. It's a common problem. It goes the other way too. Could be either way.
Yes.
But the point is, if you were to get this guy to see this,
yes.
you might say to him, I noticed that when your wife tells you to change your shirt, you do it. When your wife tells you to go out for ice cream, you do it. And he might say, you're right. I never noticed that before.
Mm.
I'm like a robot. See, that might be enough for this guy to come up from 5 to 4.
Yeah.
Which is any choice but one's own, which is better. See, he's not a robot to a specific person.
Yeah.
Then he's more like a robot to a lot of people.
Right.
So if the gang says, yeah, let's go to the beach, he'll say, okay, I'll go to the beach. See, it's a group. It's a sort of a group mentality that he's going along with, rather than following commands from a specific person, which is a lower state.
Yeah. So a person needs to, as you say, have a certain level of insight. And to do that, the higher your, I'd imagine the higher your ranking on the scale, the more likely you're to have that insight. Is that fair to say?
Yes, as I said earlier,
yeah.
The higher you are on the scale, that means you have insight in the area. Yeah. So the common denominator of all these skills of going up and down is insight. Okay? There's such a thing as an insightful person. An insightful person can look at somebody and say, this person is depressed. See? Because he's insightful. Even if he doesn't really know the person, even if the person didn't say that, because he's insightful.
Yeah.
You see? A person who lacks insight, you might say somebody who's dopey, could look at this person and not get it.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, if you know somebody's depressed, you're going to treat them differently. You're going to say, Joe, sit down. Can I get you a cup of tea? Rather than a person who's too dopey to figure that out, I'll say, hey, Joe, come on, let's go out and play baseball. See, the person who's depressed doesn't want to hear that. And he's not going to respond well to it. Yeah. So that's the common denominator of all these skills. So you will find that most people are high in some skills and low in other skills. Whatever level you're at, you want to move to the next higher level. And the further up you go, the easier it is because you have more insight in that area.
Right. Okay. Cool. Is there from the scale of choice, and this is how the choice is available to you from your perception? Is there anything more you want to discuss on this, or should we move on to the next slide?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the choices available to you. It's how a person relates to choice.
Okay.
Like somebody who's at level 6. Okay, he's going to vote for Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Mussolini. Okay, he's a collectivist. He doesn't want to make a choice. He wants somebody else to make it for him.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a healthy state to be in. But there are people like that. Okay, those are the people who want a totalitarian state. Most people do not want that because they're higher on the scale than that.
Yeah, so they just go along with whatever the other party is doing because it's the group's choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the old Soviet Union. The government told you what job you would have, where you would live, what school you would go to, what career you were going to have, when you could get a car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? You didn't make the choice. And even though there was a specific person telling you this, he represented the masses. That's what he would say.
Okay. Understood. Does that cover that particular slide, the scale of choice?
For now, that's good.
Okay. So the next one is the scale of permeation. Do you want to talk us through what permeation is, how that relates to what we're doing and the scale?
Okay. Permeation is the basic ability of a spiritual being. That is what spiritual beings do. They permeate things.
Yeah.
The reason you get sensation from your body is that you, as a spiritual being, are permeating it. When you die, you
Right.
stop permeating it. That is the definition of death. Okay?
Okay.
You stop permeating it, you don't get any more sensation from it. Okay? Now, when two people love one another deeply, it's because they're permeating one another.
Yeah.
Okay, so permeation is an inherently positive thing,
Mm-hmm.
and as you have less of it, you have less affinity.
Mm.
So for example, the lowest level of this is permeate.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me, must permeate.
Yeah.
This is compulsion. This is the person who he must permeate that. Okay, like this guy, he has to have his heroin fix. Okay,
Yeah.
it's compulsive. He must permeate that experience. Above that is unable to permeate. Unable to permeate is not as bad as must permeate. Unable to permeate is succumbing. A person who's dying or who's losing, he's saying, "Oh, I'm losing. I can't permeate." That's not as bad as compulsive.
Yeah.
Above that is able to permeate. Now, able to permeate doesn't mean you are permeating. It means you could permeate, and that's a person who's indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just doesn't really care. You know, like the person who he doesn't vote, he doesn't pay any attention to political campaigns. He's indifferent. He's able to permeate, but he's not really permeating. Now, above that is unwilling to permeate. Unwilling to permeate is an antipathy. Like when somebody hates you, they're unwilling to permeate you.
Yeah.
Okay? You have some enemy. You don't want to permeate him. You want to be far away from him.
Okay.
Right? So you see there that a person who has a high ability to permeate is not going to have a lot of enemies, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Above that is willing to permeate.
Yeah.
Now, willing to permeate is better than able to permeate. It's a higher harmonic of able to permeate. This is a person who has empathy. So he sees somebody who's suffering. He feels for that person. Okay? He's willing to permeate that person. It doesn't really mean he is permeating that person, but he has empathy for the person. He is willing to permeate that person. Okay? And again, this is an outflow. See the plus on the right there?
Yeah.
So empathy is an outflow. You're outflowing to the person. You're saying, yes, I am with you. Above that is can permeate at will. This is what success is. A person who can permeate at will has success. So, for example, Monet, the great Impressionist painter, he could permeate at will, painting. In other words, the paints, the easel, the brushes, the model that he was looking at, the building or whatever, he could permeate it at will. He could go out with his easel, stop at some random place and look at a tree and paint that tree because he could permeate it at will.
Okay.
You see, somebody who did not have insight wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
You see? So this is a man who, in the area of painting at least, had great insight. So that's what the beauty of his paintings. His paintings are not like photographs, but they give you an impression of the thing. It's very powerful. So you get the feeling of what he was looking at through the impression he creates by his strokes. Okay, so that's success. Or if you take like Eddie Van Halen playing the guitar, right? I mean, he was as successful as you can be as a guitar player. Okay, he could permeate the guitar at will. Okay, there was no such thing as, oh, I can't play today, or this is hard, or anything like that. Okay, so he could permeate his guitar, his pick, his amp, the audience, and everything else at will.
Yeah.
Okay, zip, just like that. Success. Now, above that is something that most people never experience, which is complete permeation. Complete permeation is power. So very often you'll find a couple who are so deeply in love, they are completely permeating one another. And so, for one thing, they draw power from that. But also you could say they have power over the other person.
Yeah.
So very often people who are deeply in love will have a telepathic connection because they have power over the person by permeation. So the husband will think to the wife, I really would like a cup of tea. And she gets up and gets a cup of tea and brings it to him because he has power over her. Now, when I say power, I don't mean domination.
Yeah. No, it's a flow.
I don't mean domination.
Sounds like it's a flow, what you're talking about there, where they're connected.
It's true power.
Yeah.
Okay. Many people get power mixed up with domination. Domination is a bad thing. Power is a good thing. So, like, you know, when the kid loves the dad comes home, the kid jumps up and down, he smiles, he hugs the dad, right? There's power in that. Okay. Yeah. If you try to hurt that kid, that dad will rip you to shreds with his bare hands. Yeah. Because he gets power from it. Yeah. You see? There's all kinds of stories about such as a woman who had a car that fell on her child, and she lifted up the car to pull the child out. Yeah. Now, you would say, well, how could a 120-pound woman lift up a car? Well, that's the power of permeation. This is something you see in martial arts, where a person can throw the chi down into his fist, and he hits the guy once, breaks his nose, knocks him out. Yeah. End the fight. Okay? So that's he has command over his chi. He has power over it because he has complete permeation in this area. Yeah. That would be martial artist of the highest standing. Yeah,
understood. Okay. So that's the scale of permeation. Should we move on to the next scale, or is there more to go on that one?
No, it's fine. That's fine.
Beautiful. So now we're moving to the scale of thought.
Right.
Can you explain what you mean by scale of thought and the scale?
Well, I mean, there's such a thing as human thought. People think. Okay. Okay. Now, if you're unconscious, you know, you're like in a coma. You're not. You could argue that person is not thinking. Okay, so that person would not be on this scale. Yeah. You have to get to a point where you can think. You can look at something and say,
so you're talking
that's a wall.
Conscious thought there, or unconscious?
Yeah.
Conscious.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sort of saying, that if you are, I'm sort of defining thinking as consciousness.
Okay, understood. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And people can think at different levels. So a person who is highly intelligent can think better than somebody who has a much lower IQ. So at the bottom is deny, meaning ignore. Person is in denial. This is a guy, every night he drinks a bottle of scotch, he falls down on the floor, okay? And if you say to him, well, don't you think you're an alcoholic? He'll say, oh, no, I'm not an alcoholic. He's in denial. Okay? So he's ignoring this thing, whatever it is. So that's what denial is. It's ignoring. So that's a type of thought. So if you talk to this person, you know, the normal person can talk to this guy and say, I don't see how this guy cannot realize he's an alcoholic. Okay, he lost his driver's license. He's always getting fired. He's late for work. You know, he spends all his money on booze, and yet he says he's not an alcoholic. Well, what they're not understanding is this person's level of thought is denial. It's the lowest level of thought. You're saying no to a reality. Yeah. Above that is dissociate. Disassociation is rejection, right? There's somebody you don't like, you go away from them, right? Like a couple has a fight and they go their separate ways. One goes home and the other one goes to his home, okay? So you're rejecting the person. You're disassociating from the person, okay? That's a type of thought. Now, there are people who habitually disassociate. So you say to somebody, let's say you have somebody who believes that dinosaurs lived at the same time on Earth as man, right? Which we know from paleontology is not true. Okay, It's scientifically not true. You can say to him, dinosaurs were extinct before there were humans. And he'll say, nah. He'll reject it. Now you'll say, well, wait a minute. I'm giving him something right out of the internet or right out of a book, and yet he's rejecting it. Well, what you have to understand is this person is at disassociate. He's
is that similar
disassociated.
to like disassociating emotions from because that can be a way of not getting as emotionally involved as something is to disassociate. Is that the same sort of thing that you're talking about there?
No, that would be disassociate in a different context.
Okay.
This is disassociate as a type of thought.
Right.
This is important because when you're dealing with downscale people, it's important to understand the way they're thinking. I mean, if you have a guy who votes for the Nazi Party but insists he's not anti-Semitic, this guy is in denial. Okay?
Yeah, okay. Understand, yeah.
So that's how you can understand this person, because most people will just scratch their head. They'll say, I don't get it. Then above that is a person who disassociates. Yeah. Many people, you can tell somebody something that's factual. Like I actually did not believe this until I looked into it. But there actually are some people who believe the world is flat. That is not only not true, it's impossible according to physical science. Okay? So you can tell this person, look, I studied physical science. It's not possible for the world to be flat. It's spherical, like all the other celestial bodies. And he'll just reject it. He'll say, what do you know? See, he's disassociating from you.
All right, understood.
It's like water rolling off the back of a duck. Mm-hmm. Then above that is identify. Yep. Now, identify is a type of thinking. This is equating. So a person who says all women are untrustworthy, right? He's equating all women. He's saying they are all the same and they all equal untrustworthiness. Okay, So he's identifying. That's a type of thought.
Right.
So if you run into one of these characters and you try to talk him out of it, you're going to be stymied. You have to understand that he is equating things. Yeah. So people who have fixed ideas, right? Like there are some blacks who say all whites are racist. Okay, and you could say no, that's not true. There are many, and you could give him names, and he'll just say no. He's got it identified in his mind that whites are racist, and you can't talk him out of it because he's at level 5. Now above that is associate, which is what most people do most of the time. They think by association. Like a woman is at this grocery store. There's another woman online in front of her, and she says to her, "Oh, I like your hat." And the woman says, "Thank you very much." And then she says, "Yes, I have a hat very similar to that." Yeah. See, she's comparing. This is like what normal people do. One guy says, "You follow baseball?" "Yeah, I'm a Twins fan."
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. Well, what about you?" "Well, I'm an Angels fan." See, they're comparing. Yeah. They're associating. That's not a very high level of thought. It's just, you show me yours and I'll show you mine.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the dividing line between sane and insane. If you're below level 4, you are insane in the corresponding area. More so as you descend the scale. If you're above level 4, you are sane in the corresponding area. More so as you ascend the scale. So above associate is differentiate. This guy can tell the difference. Like some people will say, all liberals are the same. All right? And somebody who differentiates, who can analyze, will say, no, this liberal voted for this thing, but this one didn't. Yeah. See, he's analyzing it. Analyzing sort of means loosening. He can differentiate. He can see that all Democrats are not the same. Some are like this and some are like that. Okay? Or whatever the category is. He can analyze it. And this is a person who can think at a higher level than somebody who simply associates. See, the person who associates says, oh, you can't trust those Republicans.
Mm.
And the guy at level 3 will say, well, some Republicans are better than others, you see, which is closer to the truth. See, you can differentiate.
Yeah.
At level 2 is duplicate. This is learning. Learning is a process of duplication. The teacher says to you, Columbus discovered America in 1492. You duplicate that in your mind, and when she asks you on the test, what year did Columbus discover America? You write down 1492. You have duplicated the information. This is how learning occurs. Most people don't really understand this.
Yeah.
You learn by duplicating. So that is why all the great musicians copy all the people who went before them. Okay, so Eric Clapton listened to B.B. King and heard how he played, and that influenced him. You see, there was some duplication there.
Yeah.
So, and above that is create. Create is the highest level of thought. This is what you get from somebody who is inspired. Okay, like if you listen to a great musician, he is creating. He's at a level of creation. So many great musicians, I've seen this, knowing some of these people, can just sit down at their instrument, no music, no band, no song, just play.
Yeah.
Just absolutely make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Okay, that's inspiration.
Yeah.
So, for example, when Einstein discovered the theory of relativity, he was at level 1. He created something new.
Yeah.
He created a theory that hadn't existed before. He was inspired. Similarly, when Tesla created the alternating current motor, okay, he created it in his mind. He saw it in his mind. He was inspired. And then he went and built the thing that he saw in his mind. Okay, so that's the highest level of thought.
Okay. That's a scale of thought.
Right. Now I want you to just want to comment, the axis on the right. So this axis goes from total permeation and knowledge to no permeation and knowledge. So a person below level 7, notice that no permeation is below level 7 because absolutes are unattainable. So a person who's in denial in the corresponding area has virtually no permeation or knowledge. He doesn't have enough knowledge of himself to even understand what he is. And at the top, again, absolutes are unattainable. Nobody gets to total permeation, but maybe 99.9%.
Yeah.
So if you see like Isaac Stern play the violin, he was at level 1. Whatever thoughts he was having were thoughts of inspiration and creation. Okay, so his permeation of the violin and the bow was close to absolute.
Right.
And his knowledge of the violin and of technique and of the whole thing was close to absolute. Okay, which is why he was such a great violinist.
Yeah.
So this is very good. And when you see somebody, to peg them on this and realize what you're dealing with. Because if a person is at level 5, 6, or 7, that person is insane in that area.
Yeah.
Okay? The guy who says you can't trust women is insane about women. He might be sane about something else. You might be able to have a perfectly good discussion with him about basketball, okay? But in that other area, he's not sane because he's identifying. And you have to realize that no two things are the same. Even identical twins who are raised together have differences.
Yeah. Okay. And so from here, on the scale of thought, is that something you can move, or is something you like the first?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can move. Yeah. I mean, people do move.
How do you go about that if you recognize you're one level and you move to a different level?
So look, when Eric Clapton was a kid, right? Somebody got a hold of a guitar, okay, and he was at level 4. He associated.
Yeah.
Then he listened to music, and he started differentiating. He's saying, "Well, yeah, this music is this way. This music, opera is one thing, jazz is another thing, blues is another thing." See, he was differentiating. And then he went up to duplicate, and he started listening to all the great guitarists, Barney Kessel, and whoever else was around, okay? Listening, learning from them. He would play the records, and he would copy it, okay? And eventually, he came up to one where he was a creative player. He would play a solo, and I've seen him do this. He would play a solo. He never played that solo like that before at any time in his life. He was making it up as he was going along. It was all inspiration, okay?
Yeah.
So he was at level 1. So he worked his way up from 4 to 1. That's what happens.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to point out, this is a linear scale, which means it's not a spiral scale. Notice that there's no apparent congruence between level 1 and level 7. They're completely different.
Yeah.
That's because it's a linear scale. And it's a quantum scale. Okay? So, meaning you get to a level and it's like a new thing for you.
Yeah. Can you go backwards? Do people go backwards, or is it generally one direction?
Sure they do. When people have terrible things happen to them, they go down. So you see this in life. Let's say you have a guy, he's a normal guy, right? His wife and his baby are killed in an automobile accident. Okay? The guy has a nervous breakdown. He's clinically depressed. He goes on psychiatric drugs. He gets off them and starts drinking. He loses his job. He can't pay his mortgage. He loses his house. This guy has crashed. This guy, as a result of this trauma, has gone down many of these scales. His thought will be lower, his permeation will be lower, and so forth.
Right, okay. Yeah. So, and again, with this, it's part of your own self-awareness to work out where you are on the scale.
Sure, it's observation.
Yeah.
It's observation. You know, like you can look at something, like, for example, I happen to know a lot about baseball, okay? I can look at two baseball players and differentiate. Yeah. Okay, this guy hits for power, this guy is a contact hitter, okay? So their approach to the game is different, okay? So because I know this area, I can analyze it, and I can see the subtleties. That's what a manager does. He can analyze his players, okay? So that's because now, if you take like hockey, I don't know enough about hockey to really differentiate. You know, I once went to a polo match. I was dragged to this polo match by somebody I knew who was an equestrian. She said, let's go to the polo match. And I was just being agreeable. So, okay. Now, this person was oohing and eyeing at certain horses. Oh, that's a very good horse. To me, they all looked the same. I couldn't differentiate. To me, they were just horses. You know, all the horses were, because I didn't know about horses, you know, from 200 feet away, I can say any difference, see? Yeah. So I really could not see how this person was differentiating them. I didn't know enough about it.
Yeah. Okay. I understand there. Right. So that's the scale of thought.
Yes.
Beautiful. Shall we move on to the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the scale of identity. So can you explain what you mean by identity? Is it, you know, who you see yourself as, or?
Well, a person assumes an identity.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a guy, he identifies as a Tory, right? Guy in the UK. I'm a Tory. That's his identity.
Right.
In that area. All right? It's clear to him. Now, notice that the highest level on this is no need for an identity. A person who is extroverted has no need for an identity. This is a person who, he won't say he's a Tory. He won't say he's for labor. He's just extroverted. He's just observing what's around him. He doesn't have a preconceived idea of what his identity is. Now, if you look at 7, again, this is a spiral scale, meaning there's an apparent overlap. At 7, it's no possible identity. So they're both no identity. But at 1, it's because you have no need for an identity. And at 7, it's because there's no possible identity. Person at level 7 is oblivious. Okay? He's completely out to lunch.
Yeah.
He doesn't know a Tory from a labor leader. Okay. He is oblivious.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's easy to confuse if you don't know the scale 1 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can talk to a guy and say, well, what political party do you identify with? And he'll say, well, I don't really identify with any of them. And is that because he's oblivious or is that because he's extroverted? Now, if you look at the person, you can see the difference. A person who is extroverted, he's in present time and space. He's looking around. He's paying attention. He's alert.
Yes.
A person who's oblivious, he's half asleep.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So you need to make that distinction, not jump to a conclusion. And notice that the axis is perception, right? A person who is oblivious has no perception. That's why he's oblivious. A person who's extroverted has maximal perception. That's what extroverted means. He's perceiving as much as he can perceive. He's looking around. Okay? So again, notice that this says inflow, outflow, inflow, outflow, inflow, outflow. And that means that there's a quantum leap for the person from one level to the next level. So in other words, it's a reversible polarity. It's a big deal if a person goes from level 6 to level 5 or from level 5 to level 6. So you'll see this in a person. You'll have somebody have something either very traumatic happen to him, which will cause him to change level, or he'll have something tremendously beautiful and transformational, which will cause him to change level up. Mm-hmm. Either way, it's not a simple, easy thing. Yeah. It's not something that happens quickly or easily. So that guy who's at level 2, certain of identity, I am a Tory. Okay? He's certain of his identity. So there is a certain contrition that goes with that. In other words, the Tories come to him and say, you need to give us some money for the election. And he says, okay, because he's contrite. These are the people who give money to political campaigns. Mm-hmm. There's an element of contrition in them. The person level 1 has no contrition. What's he going to be contrite about? He's extroverted. Then below certain of identity is uncertain of identity. This is a person who's indecisive. So this is the person who goes from being a Tory to say, gee, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be a Tory, He's become indecisive about it. Yeah. And notice that uncertainty is an inflow, whereas certainty is an outflow. Yeah. When a person says, I am a Democrat, see, he's outflowing. When a person's uncertain of that, he's indecisive. He's inflowing. In other words, he's withdrawn from that area. Mm-hmm. See? So that's why it's an inflow. Then you go below that to wrong identity. Now, this person then, who is going down this scale, will then attain some identity that's other than Tory. He's not merely indecisive. He has changed his mind. Mm-hmm. So to the Tory party, he is an enemy. Right. And he, in his mind, he has gone to a wrong identity relative to what it was before. And then below that is a lost identity. This is a person who loses the identity completely, and meaning he betrays it. This is a person who lost his identity as a Tory. He betrays the Tory. He gives money to the Labour Party. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is a very bad state. This is where you find traitors. This is a person with a lost identity. So a guy is loyal to his country. He goes through some sequence where he goes down the scale. He loses his identity as an Englishman or as an Australian or as an American or whatever. And he betrays the country. He commits treason. Mm-hmm. See, he would have to lose his identity before he would do that. Right. Then below that is disorientation. Mm-hmm. This person is in chaos. He doesn't have a clue. Mm-hmm. He is not even able to be a traitor. Yeah. That's chaos. And chaos is kind of an outflow. He's sort of doesn't really have any clear thoughts in the area. Mm-hmm. And below that is the lowest level, which is oblivion. It's not even chaotic. It's below chaotic.
Mhm.
So in going up the scale, if a person's at levels, you find a guy who's oblivious, okay, and you give him some therapy, in the corresponding area, he will come up to chaos. He will become disoriented.
Yeah.
In other words, he'll say, gee, I'm really confused about this. Whereas before, he wasn't confused. He was just oblivious.
Yeah.
Then if you could keep working with him, he'll come up to lost identity. He'll say, yeah, I lost my identity as X, Y, or Z, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you keep working with him, he'll come up to wrong identity, where say, yeah, instead of being a Tory, I became a member of the Labour Party. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where he has a wrong identity. It's the wrong identity for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he goes up further, he'll come up to uncertainty. Say, well, it's not clear to me what party I should belong to. And then if you keep working with him, eventually he'll come up to certainty. He'll say, I used to be an avowed Tory.
Mm-hmm.
I was certain of my identity. And if you keep working with him, he will eventually come to where he doesn't have a need for this. He doesn't have to be a member of any political party. He's just extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
This burden has been taken off him. Because when you have an identity, there's a burden connected with it.
Yeah.
There's always a burden connected with an identity. So a person who is a free thinker is at level 1.
Yeah.
He has no need for an identity.
Mm-hmm. So with that, the identity or the scale of identity, are we talking about, because a person can, through life can go through a change in identity. Cat Stevens, for example, would
Yes.
be a good one. Now, see, that's not what you're talking about as a scale of identity, is it? You're actually talking about awareness of your identity at that point in time. Is that?
Well, Cat Stevens, I'm familiar with Cat Stevens. I know the whole story. He definitely moved on the scale.
Yeah. But but that's what I'm trying to understand. When you're talking about the scale of identity, is this, when you say no need for identity, or certain of identity, or even uncertain. So between those two, you've got certain identity and uncertain of identity. So and what I'm trying to understand here is a person might be in this point of time. Let's say Cat Stevens as a musician. He's certain of his identity, and then I would at that point in time, and then as time moves on, he might become uncertain of identity, then realize that he had the wrong identity, and then he goes back to becoming certain of his identity to his new identity. Is that how the scale works?
Well, you have to realize this is a specific scale, which means it has an orientation. You have an identity as a sports fan. You have an identity in your religion. You have an identity in your political party. Like, there are many people, upscale people, smart people, who don't have any need for political identity. Yeah. If you say to them, are you a liberal or conservative? They say, I'm neither. I'm just myself. You see, they're at level 1.
Okay, so
but that is a narrow context. There's a context to it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand, the context.
Right.
Scale of identity is,
right.
And it can be, as you say, just as narrow as that, as to whether your identity as a sports fan, or it can be your identity, as a as a giving person or a philanthropist, sort of thing. That kind of thing. So okay,
right.
Understood. Yeah.
So it's important. Again, and if you read the book, you'll see I explain. It's even on the website. You can read it there. The difference between a specific scale and a general scale, okay? Like the scale of basic purposes is a general scale. You find your level, that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
This you can use 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 times in different contexts.
Gotcha.
You can see that, like, let's say you have a guy, right? He's on a bowling team.
Mm.
All of a sudden, he quits the bowling team.
Mm.
Well, what happened there? He lost his identity as a bowler.
Yeah.
You see, he stopped being a bowler. Or you have a guy who's a sports fan. He roots for a certain team. He stops paying attention to the team. So he lost his identity as a Mets fan or a Yankee fan or whatever it is. He lost his identity. So that's movement on the scale.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
So you can help a person a person who's down in these lower levels, disorientation, oblivion, you can help him go back up this scale. And as you do, we will see him go through this pattern.
Okay.
You know?
Understood. So that's the scale of identity. Is there anything more we need to cover on that before we move on to the next
No,
one?
I think that's good.
Beautiful. Okay, so next
now,
one.
I just want to say we've been going for an hour and a half. How long did you intend to go with this? Did you want to just keep going? And
yeah, so probably another, say, 20 minutes. Is that
okay?
That work from your end?
Okay, we can do one or more scale, one or two more scales.
Yeah.
Okay, so the scale of evaluation. So evaluation, people do evaluation all the time. You look at something, you've evaluated. You know, you go to the store, right? And there's a bin of apples, right? You want to buy apples. So you're looking at each apple, you're evaluating it. You say, oh, here's a nice one, I want this one. Here's one, no, that one's bruised, I don't want that one. You're evaluating them, right? That's what I mean by evaluation. So people do this all the time. This is like something that human beings do. If the person is not in a coma or asleep, he's doing this.
Yeah.
Now, you have to realize that everybody enters this scale at level 4. Now, notice on the last scale, everybody enters the previous scale at level 1 and then descends as it gets worse. Yeah. This one, you enter at level 4 always. Okay, you cannot enter at any other level because you come in neutral. You are impartial. Yeah. Okay, so if somebody learns about something that he does not know anything about, okay, he has neutrality. He has no partiality whatsoever. So you say to the guy, would you like to play Monopoly with us? The guy says, what's that? He never heard of that game. Yeah. Right? So he doesn't have an opinion about it. He's impartial. Okay. So you say, okay, so let me show you. It's a board game. Here's the game. Here are the rules. You know, you explain it. And so the guy says, well, look, we're going to play Monopoly. Why don't you join us? He says, well, I never did this before, but it's only a game. Okay, I'll play. Right? Right? So now, at some point during that game, he's going to either move up or down. If he likes it, there is some acceptance. He says, oh, I see. This is pretty cool. You know, he's condoning it. Yeah. Saying, oh, this is a good thing. Or if he doesn't like it, he might say, why would anybody want to do this? Yeah. See, he's discouraging you. He's disagreeing with it. No, this is not something I want to do. Right. So now, so you can talk to a person or listen to a person, and you can spot right away where he is relative to this specific context. Notice this is a specific scale. Yeah. Okay. So let's take something, let's say, the Republican Party, right? If you have a guy who's gone down, he's invalidating it. He's saying, no, they're bad. He's going to refute everything they say. But if he goes further, he'll condemn them. Say, these people should be shot. I hate them. See, loathing. Yeah. Well, look across. Hate is the bottom of the scale. Okay. So this person, this is not a good state to be in. Okay. He would be much better off if he worked his way back to neutrality, where he could be impartial. Yeah. Okay. Because loathing is something that hurts the person. Yeah. Or up from that invalidation, refuting something is a negative thing. You know, there are people who are negative people. They refute. If you say, I'm a believing Christian, they'll say, oh, that's a lot of bunk. Yeah. See, they're refuting you. So, or the guy could come in, first find out about the Republican Party, he's 10 years old, and he reads something and he says, oh, this makes sense to me. He goes up to 3, he accepts it. Yeah. This is something I can condone. And then if he keeps going, he'd come up to unanimity where he agrees with them. He is a Republican. He is unanimous with them. He agrees with them. Okay? Yeah. They have this platform and he agrees with them. And if he keeps going, he will go up to encouragement. Okay? Yeah. Where he's avid. He loves the Republican Party. Okay? So obviously it can go either way. So you have people who are at level 1 who love the Republican Party, and people at level 7 who are at hate. They hate the Republican Party. So you have to realize that it's much better to love something than to hate something, no matter what it is. Yeah. Okay. So that that the axis there is an axis that goes from love to hate.
Yeah. And this is, you say, it's a specific scale, so it applies to whatever specific item or that it is. So your evaluation,
Right.
and it relates to your evaluation. You might,
Right.
you love, you might love flowers, but hate, pressed flowers or something like that. Which that's getting very
Right.
specific. Yeah.
Right. Right. So like a person, he's never seen Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah.
Never seen it. Right. So you show it to him on the internet. And see, when he starts, he's neutral. And he watches it and he says, oh, this is a good show. You see, he's accepting it.
Yeah.
Or he might watch it and say, this is creepy. I don't want to watch this. He's disagreeing with it. So it can be very narrow, very small, or it can be big. It can be like, what breakfast cereal do you eat? He eats Rice Krispies, And then the guy says, I'm deciding I don't really like Rice Krispies. He's discouraging his wife from buying it. He disagrees with it.
Yeah.
Let's get something else. So then he gets, let's say, cornflakes. He's back at 4, and he eats them and he likes them. So he says, okay, I can accept these.
Mm.
And this is very specific. And this is critical in deciding who you want around you.
Yeah.
If you are a liberal, okay, and you see that a person hates liberals, okay, he's at level 7, he condemns them, that's not somebody you want around you.
Yeah.
Or at least you want to not bring up the subject.
Mm. Okay.
See? So this helps you decide who you want to be around. And if you are around people, how are you going to deal with them?
Yeah.
So like, I know people who have political leanings, and I just don't raise the subject,
Mm.
I don't bring it up. I don't discuss it. And so I don't get dragged into whatever negativity they have going. Because, you realize in politics, necessarily, whatever you love, there's something you hate. That's why it's called politics.
Very polar.
Same thing with religion. There's some people who are pro-Christian, people who are anti-Christian. So personally, I don't like to be around negative people. Yeah. Negative people are at the bottom of the scale.
Yeah.
If a guy says, Christianity is no good, I don't want those people around me, that's negative. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, if he just kept his opinion to himself, I wouldn't know about it, and then we could both be neutral together.
Yeah. So, and you're saying it's very specific to an item, so you don't, it's being aware, okay, where you are on that scale, and in relation to that particular item. That's
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Item or activity, sphere of influence, whatever it is, it's something, and that's why this is in play all the time. All the time. Understood. You walk into a store, right? Mm-hmm. Within 10 seconds, you are either going to say, okay, this is a nice place, or you're going to say, what a horrible place. I don't want to be here. See, you've already gone, either you've gone up to 3 or down to 5. Yeah. It happens very quickly. So you go through the store and you see they don't have any plastic bags. The fruit looks old. They only have one person at the register, where they have 5 registers. You're going down the scale. By the time you leave there saying, this place is terrible. I'm not coming back here. You're at level 6. Yeah. Okay? And you don't go back. So the next time you go to another store, different store, and you go in and say, oh, now this is more like it. It's clean. The fruit looks fresh. There's 5 people at the checkout counters. See, you go up the scale. Understood. Okay. Yep. So that's a scale of evaluation. Is there anything more to cover on that before we move on to the next one? Well, this is important. Like if you want to date somebody, let's say you're Jewish, right? And you find out that this guy hates Jews, right? So he's near the bottom near the bottom of the scale. He might be condemning them, or he might just be invalidating them. Either way, if you're Jewish, you don't want to go out with this guy. Yeah. You see? So you can use this scale to say, this is a non-starter. Goodbye. Yeah. Okay. You don't have to be mean about it, but you can make a decision.
Yeah, so it's helping exactly what you're saying. It's helping you make a decision. Being aware of where you are on the scale is helping you make a decision
Right.
to what to do going forward. Like you say, the grocery store, you go in there and it's not, it doesn't suit what you like. It's old and ratty, and that's not something you appreciate. And so from your standpoint, it's low on your scale of evaluation. So in heading towards that hate area, you don't want to be around that, so you don't go there. You find another
Yeah.
store.
If somebody says to you, hey, what about Joe's grocery store? You're going to invalidate it. You're going to say, I went there. It was terrible.
Yeah.
All the fruit was a week old,
Yeah.
So you're going to invalidate it. And the reason you're invalidating it is you're doing a favor for your friend saying, don't go there. You'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
And your friend says, thanks for the warning.
Fair enough too. To the hypothetical Joes, for any Joe's grocery stores out there, we're not specifically talking to you.
That's right.
Put the disclaimer in there just in case. All right, so that's a scale of evaluation.
Right.
Let's move on to the next one, the scale of motivation, which I think this is probably a big one for a lot of people. Do you want to talk?
It should be.
Again, this is a specific one as well. So this relates to specific. So you might, it relates to a specific thing you might be motivated about.
Right.
So do you want to take that away?
Sure. So you might have one motivation toward your church, another motivation toward your wife, another motivation toward the club you belong to. You see?
Yeah.
So, for example, if you love your wife, right, your motivation is charity. Okay, you want to help her. Okay, no payment is required. You want to be around her because you love her.
And when you say payment, you're referring about a reward. It's not a dollar payment, but it's just what you get back from that. Yeah,
right. You have to understand that the idea of return on investment, what they talk about in business, ROI, right? So there's, no matter what you do, there's always some payment and there's always, hopefully, some return.
Yeah.
So if you love somebody, you're not worried about payment.
Yeah.
You're not saying to the wife, I'll give you $50 to make a nice dinner for me. Okay. You just say, hey, man, because you see there's love there. No payment is required. She just does it because she likes you. Okay? As opposed to, if you go down to duty is obligation. It's repayment of a debt. Like a guy who says, okay, my country is going to war. I'm going to sign up for the military. Okay? It's a repayment of a debt. You see, he thinks he has a debt. He thinks, well, this country raised me. This country sent me to public school. This country provides me with roads. I have a duty here. Okay. Yeah. So that would be a patriotic person. Okay. So he's helping another. In this case, the another is the country. Yeah. Now, if you go down to status, which basically means fame, there you're receiving help. In other words, when you have status, people give you things. Yeah. Because of your status. So if you're in a position of fame, you get gifts. People give you flowers, like when the play is over, the leading lady very often is given a bouquet, right? A big pile of flowers. Somebody in the audience comes up and gives it to her and she bows, Yes. So she's receiving help from the people who are supporting her fame. Yeah. So she's accepting payment from another. Yeah. So when you go down from there to wealth, this is the area of money. Well, money is used to help yourself. I got to have money so I can help myself. So money is like a payment to yourself. I'm doing this job. I get $1,000 a week. That's a payment to myself. Yeah. Okay. That's your motivation. Now below that is revenge. This is a person who they will say they want justice, but most of the time they really want revenge. They want to harm somebody. Okay. This guy beat up my little brother. I'm going to get revenge. Yeah. He wants to harm him. He's going to exact a payment from that person. So you sue somebody, right? Right. So somebody beats up your wife. You go to court and you sue them. You say, we want $1 million damages for what this guy did. to my wife, and you'll win a judgment. So you are exacting payment from another. Okay? So there's some element of revenge mixed up in that.
Yeah.
And below revenge is suicide. So here you're harming yourself, right? It's a type of oblivion. Suicidal people are not clear-thinking people, okay? Their motivation is very, very murky. And they are exacting payment from themselves. They're saying, I am so bad that I'm going to make myself pay for it by shooting myself in the head. Now, if that sounds daffy to you, that's a good sign, means you're sane. Because you have to understand, this is in the insane band, right? If you look at the dividing line, wealth is the dividing line. Now, people at 1, 2, and 3 are sane in the corresponding area. People at 5, 6, or 7 are insane in the corresponding area, more so as you descend the scale. And below suicide is destruction. This person is not going to kill himself. He's going to kill everybody else.
Yeah.
He's a subversive. He wants to harm everybody, right? So he gets a gun, he goes up in the tower and with a bandolier full of bullets, and he kills as many people as you can, right? So that guy is a Looney Tune.
Yeah. And so you're talking to like in specific circumstances as well. So you're talking, would imagine that's still more metaphoric in the sense of, if your motivation to your job, you might be, taking, not really be that motivated about that type of job you've got. So you become, self-harmful in the sense of you're creating, you might be, swearing at the boss, that kind of thing, because that's a destructive behavior. Is that understanding that correctly?
Well,
you're not going into, or are you talking about from that perspective where your scale of motivation in relation to your job would be in the sense of, if you're down in that side of things, or are you talking about that, you're because you're dissatisfied with your job, you're going to commit suicide? Is that what you're talking about?
No. Think of it this way. Everybody does something because of some motivation. Yeah. Okay. There are 7 basic motivations, and this is the sequence in which they occur. And the reason the sequence is relevant is that if you give therapy of some kind to somebody and it's successful, he will come up the scale. He will stop wanting to be suicidal, but he'll become vengeful. Like a guy who wants to kill himself because his life is so bad.
Right.
So give him some therapy, and he comes up to saying, I want to get even with my dad, because he caused all this.
Yeah.
You see, that's actually a higher level. So you have to realize that when somebody is at these lower levels, they're not sane. So
what you're talking about, they use that job example, someone that might not be overly motivated about their job, but they need the money. That's probably where, that's as far down as the scale as they'll go, because they still go to work and they need it for the money. And that's their motivation to go to that job.
Right.
Even though they don't like it, but they don't go down to, the revenge side of things. So very few people will go down to that revenge, suicide, destruction as far as a motivation goes. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends on the context. I mean, there are many people at all these levels, but usually when a person has a job, he's doing it because he wants the wealth.
Yeah.
However, let's take the entertainment field, right? A person takes a job as an understudy in a play, okay? He's not making any real money. He may not be making any money, but his motivation is that he wants to achieve status as an actor.
Yes.
So he can say, I was the understudy for this in this play to somebody else. And they'll say, oh, okay. You see, that promotes their status. Yeah. So, or there are people who will, they're motivated by revenge, like terrorists, right? Like a terrorist. He's coming over, right? And he's going to blow up a school bus. Okay? He's getting revenge against somebody. So like you have
That's
you
the
have
point I'm
as a
getting
purpose.
to. That if, as far as the scale of motivation goes, for most people, you take a specific item, it's rare that they're going to go below wealth as a motivator, because when you're heading into that side of things, as you say, terrorist, that his revenge, he wants to get revenge on the world or whatever. That's that doesn't happen very much in most people's lives. You don't find people, being upset with their job and then taking revenge. So it's.
Wait a minute, before you jump to that conclusion, let me point out, okay, the entire Nazi party, which ruled Germany for 12 years, was bent on revenge.
Yeah.
They all want revenge against the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay? They wanted to harm them. That's, that's insane. But that's who they were. We're talking about millions of people. Millions.
Well, from the, from that side of things, because there's a lot of people that just went along with the flow as opposed to wanting to get revenge.
Okay, but those were not really people active in the party. I mean, if you're talking about the people who ran the Nazi party,
well, they would have been more out of duty and obligation, because they had to. If they didn't conform, they're probably going to get shot.
Well, that's different from duty. There are people in Germany who said, well, we're at war. Even though I don't like Hitler, they're bringing me into the military and I have to fight because it's my duty to Germany, which is exactly what he said.
Yes.
So you have to realize that, there's a wide variation. There's lots of people at all these levels. And you need to use this to focus on a specific person to see what is going on here.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to understand, like the bottom three, how often that would trigger into an average person's life, which I don't think, I'm looking at going in specific circumstances, like my motivation to go to the beach, for example, on that scale. It's like, well, it'd be rare that I'd be motivated to go out of revenge, suicide, or destruction. There'll be non-existence from my perspective. And I would, say, I'm just wondering, as you're talking about that, how often people in everyday life would be going into those lower three, which I would imagine is not very often.
So let me say this. Remember I said earlier that the common denominator of all these scales is insight. So the more insightful a person is, the higher he will be on the corresponding scale.
Yeah.
Okay. The less insightful he is, the lower he will be. So a person who's at the bottom of any scale is there because he lacks insight in the corresponding area.
Yeah.
So some people are insightful. Okay. So, for example, take somebody who's in a religious order, right, like the Society of Jesus. Those people devote their entire lives to Christianity. They don't even own their own clothes, okay? Yeah. They're motivated by love. It's a charitable endeavor, okay? Yes. They want to help everyone, okay? So there's no payment required. As opposed to a guy who goes into a job for money, he wants payment. He's expecting payment. Yeah. It's a different motivation. So there are a lot of people at all of these levels, and it's not important to think about demographically how many people are at one level. The way to use this is find your motivation in any one of many specific areas. What is my motivation? Like a guy is connected with a political party, okay? And he changes. He might be doing it out of obligation. Yeah. Okay? So, or there's other people who might do it because they really love that party. Yeah. Okay, so it's a different motivation. And also, when you're deciding, who do you want to hire? Who do you want to go out with? Who do you want to have for a friend? Use the scale to see, what is this person about? Like I once, I used to be a baseball coach. I never wanted to be the manager because there's too much responsibility. So the manager shows up, belatedly. We had already been practicing, and he starts talking to me, and I could hear this guy was filled with revenge. Yeah, he was a vengeful person. Yeah. Okay, he creeped me out.
Right.
And so I knew this guy was ding, ding, here comes the wagon. This guy is not sane.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was very careful to not bother him, to not hassle him, to not do anything that disturbed him, because I could see this guy was a nut.
Yeah.
Okay. As opposed to, you could have somebody you're around and the guy is doing very badly and he decides to commit suicide. Okay?
Yeah.
So you have to evaluate this. Where is this person? If the person is at level 5, 6, or 7, go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand completely. And the scale on the side, you've got, full responsibility, no responsibility. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And again, notice that the full responsibility is above level 1. The no responsibility is below level 7. So person, absolutes are unattainable. Nobody can be totally responsible. You can be maybe 99.999% responsible. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why it's up there. It's beyond it. So a person who's motivated by charity, this is a very responsible person, right? Like a guy loves his kid, right? He's charitable toward the kid. Okay. The kid says, will you get me some bubble gum? And the guy says, yes. And he buys it and gives it to him. Okay. He doesn't need any payment for that. He does it because he was helping the kid. Okay. As opposed to somebody at the other end who's destructive. This guy wants to hurt everybody. I mean, that's a real Looney Tune.
Yeah.
So this is somebody who wants to have a nuclear holocaust and end civilization.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have to evaluate people using this for your own protection. Yeah,
that's really a very good point. That you do that evaluation, if you, like you said, with the baseball coach or you were the coach, the baseball manager, and you became aware of where this person was on the motivation scale. It gives you that awareness, which is what a lot of what you're talking about is being aware of what's going on and having a criteria to assess that awareness.
Right. Or you use the word aware, I use the word insight.
Insight, yeah. Sorry. I meant the word. Yes.
Insight results in awareness. So now there's somebody I know who's a very vengeful person, okay? And because of the situation, there's really no way for me to completely avoid the person. So I just am very careful. Very careful what I say. I don't want to get on his vengeance list.
Yeah, understood completely.
Because that's the type of guy, you could insult him and he'll pull out a gun and shoot you.
Yeah.
Right? Because he wants revenge for dissing him, as they say.
Yeah.
Understood. So, or if a person, let's say you go out with a girl, she seems suicidal. Believe me, you don't want to get mixed up in that.
Yeah.
And all kinds of bad things can happen. She can kill herself and they can accuse you of murdering her.
Yeah.
Okay? So you really don't want, you may want to get the person professional help, but you don't want to be close to that person. That's something that is a red flag.
Yeah, understood completely. So being aware of
that's how you use this.
Or having the insight into the scale of motivation gives you certainly gives you areas to be caution you about in dealing with people. That's
right.
All right. So we've gone for a little while now, and I also want to pause here because the scale of motivation is a good one to pause on, and also too because I know I can see the next scale there, which is a scale of control, and I want to leave that as a bit of a teaser for people to come back to next time. So we'll pause there.
Okay.
So I'll just end the slideshow, which I've done. So that's the first part of this series. Is there anything you want to conclude with before we end this part, and then we'll come back with part 2, starting with the scale of control? Right.
So I just want to say to your viewers, I invite you to my website, septemics.com, SEPTEMICS, where you can see what many readers have said, what many journalists have written, what the reviews are, and you can read sections of the book itself. And you can even listen to a pre-recorded explanation from me as to what this is. It's a 15-minute lecture for an introductory person. If you listen to that, you'll say, okay, I see what this is about. So I invite you to go there, and obviously it's free, and you can find out what the subject is about, and it's there to help you to do better in your life. That's why I wrote it.
Fantastic. That's great, Jim. And I'll put all those links in the show notes so people can access that easily. Thanks for having this on this CourseCast for this part. We'll come back for part 2 shortly, and that'll be being released. I'm not sure of the dates at the moment, but it'll be there in the podcast list, and it'll be clearly labeled as part 2, which will start with the scale of control.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you for being part of the Share.Care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.